last years have transformed urban transportation through the creation of taxi apps, ride-sharing apps. And during our last panel, the urban transportation panel, we are going to discuss the opportunities and challenges of these services and also about their future potential developments. And I would like to invite on stage Rob Khazzam, international launcher at Uber, Christoph Auer-Welsbach, program manager at Cognicity, and Mihai Rotaru, CEO at Clever Taxi, and also our moderator, Vali Burzoi, the journalist at How to Web. Come on.
Hello, guys. Come on in, hello. Because it will be a very interesting panel. It's my honor to host the last panel of the How to Web Conference 2014. But it will be a very interesting panel because we managed to bring here Uber. And yes, I promise you, my third question will be that question that you all wanted to ask. But until then, I will ask the panelists to short introduce themselves and.
Yeah, I'm very excited being here. So thanks for Bogdan for inviting me, first of all. Secondly, as you can see, I'm Christoph. And I'm currently working, to my knowledge, on the world's biggest smart city acceleration piloting program in the center of London called Cognicity Challenge. Just a quick background to that. So Cognicity is a future city which is going to be built in Canary Wharf in London. And we are sourcing and developing new infrastructure technologies for this future city in the heart of London through these acceleration piloting programs where we're looking for startups like hopefully you guys in the crowd.
Hi everybody, my name is Rob Khazzam. I work for Uber on their international launch team focused on Central Eastern European expansion. And so in my role, I set up Uber in new markets and have most recently spent time in the Czech Republic and last week a launch in Budapest expanding to Hungary. Very excited to be here today and appreciate being invited. So Uber is very excited to be here. Thanks.
Hello everybody. My first thought was that I should have probably sent a better picture, you know, more updated. My beard grew a bit and yeah. So I'm the CEO and founder of, that correctly. So I'm the CEO and founder of Clever Taxi. Hopefully most of the people here are using it. We started off about 3 years ago, officially launched 2 years ago, and I think we changed the landscape of local transportation. We are currently present in 10 cities in Romania and, well, 3 more countries coming up, but that's not the point right now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you guys. And now let's jump to the third question. Rob, is Uber coming to Romania?
I can't say.
Why?
Yeah, no, Uber's always interested in expanding. We have a very aggressive expansion plan and have expanded to over 140 cities in the last 6 months alone. So we're quite keen on Romania as a market and Central Eastern Europe in general with recent launches in Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary, and are certainly quite interested in keeping an eye on the Romanian market.
Okay, but what is Uber? A taxi company? A tech company? What is it?
Uber is firmly a technology company that taxi drivers and limo drivers and drivers everywhere use to connect with riders. And so it's really an open technology platform, a two-sided platform, which solves a simple problem, which is someone trying to get from point A to point B. And our technology platform in the hands of millions of people allows people to do that.
So you're not just a bunch of nasty people who try to piss off everybody?
No. Definitely not. Uber is a friendly, hardworking, creative, and innovative company focused truly on making getting around easier at the touch of a button and getting our technology into the hands of as many drivers and riders as possible. We don't own vehicles. We don't hire drivers. We are really about being an open platform and making getting around a city easier.
You don't hire drivers? Really?
No,
At all?
no.
What is the difference then between, you have several services. Can you explain them a
Sure.
bit?
So Uber's flagship product, which was introduced in 2010 when the company started in San Francisco, is called Uber Black. Uber Black is a high-end limousine product where you're connected basically with a luxury vehicle, a BMW or a Mercedes, driven by a driver wearing a suit and a tie. Like the vehicles you see outside fancy hotels, being ridden in by business people. This product basically unlocked access to this service for everyday people at a low cost, and also provided those drivers with access to new clientele who they hadn't previously had access to. This was introduced in 2010 and is available globally across many markets, including recently a launch in Prague in August. Uber X is a lower cost product which connects you to drivers in lower end vehicles, and Uber Pop is a ride sharing service which connects you to basically your neighbor, your friend, your brother, your mother, your school teacher, someone in your community using their car to give people rides and basically increase the utilization of their vehicle and help people get around their city in the meantime.
Okay. Mihai, you weren't so convinced, or you just shake your head when you heard that they are not hiring?
Yeah, I was just reading an article that the CEO was saying that they were creating 40,000 jobs each month, I think, and that was just...
Yeah, I mean, I think Uber is creating income earning opportunities the same way eBay did or Amazon does for independent sellers. And what the proposition to any driver with Uber is if you use this application, you can be connected to people seeking your services. And many of the drivers that use Uber are limo drivers that have their own business, or they have their own clientele. And in their downtime, they are like any other service provider or asset owner. They're looking to increase the utilization of their asset and make more money. And Uber is a great alternative for them to do that. Some of them use it full-time, and some of them use it part-time as a gap filler. It's a way of life for them. They are not employed by the company. It's really for them to use as they see fit, the same way that someone could use any other platform to make a living.
Mihai, we also have here similar services on the Romanian market. Actually, we have two major apps. Let's say them. They are taxi apps, but they are quite different as business model. Can you explain us a bit the difference between Clever Taxi and Star Taxi?
Sure. So with Clever Taxi, we want to create an open marketplace, a platform for local transportation. And transportation means anything from people to goods. We aggregate taxi companies, service providers, basically. And the difference between us and Star Taxi, the main difference is that while we cooperate with taxi companies trying to provide a high quality of service, they actually work directly with the drivers, which comes with an operational expense and a more difficult way to scale up. And right now we have operations in 10 cities, but we only have people in Bucharest, and mainly they are technical. We're doing mainly building the product, which is the same for the whole world. While Star Taxi is not that widespread out in the country, mainly because of this operational issue.
Okay, Christoph, from your perspective, you are looking at the larger picture, right? You see local services like we have in Romania. You see Uber expanding aggressively. How do you see this market? How do you think it will evolve in next 2 years?
So I think it's a very important part of a city to have services like that, because it increases efficiency and the convenience for passengers, for people going from A to B dramatically. What we are interested in and what we are looking for is how these services are integrated into other systems, take public transportation, for example. So how do they work together? And when you reach a critical mass, well, I think Uber is getting to, it would be interesting to see, how could a public transportation system, which is completely overloaded in London, can work together with Uber to decrease the problems what they have to bring the masses from A to B every day in the morning or in the evening.
Yeah, but you want to add something?
It's an interesting point. We, as a company, we look at a lot of data and where trips happen, and we look at charts to see where trips happen in a city and at what time of day. And one of the interesting things we've seen in a city like London, for example, which has an excellent transportation system, is that Uber is used as an extension of it. So you see the subway lines and metro lines connected, and then you see where trips happen, and it's basically at the end of the line, extending into the suburbs is where Uber is used. And so we see it, as you said, as a complement to existing public transport infrastructure and used as an extension, as an extension of what is already a fully functioning transport system.
Yeah. Mihai, what's your take on the evolution of the market?
Yeah, well, I think what Uber is all about, and probably us as well, is creating perfect logistics, which is the holy grail. And this means cooperating with public transport as well, just finding the most optimal route between 2 points and trying to basically group together, be it people or stuff.
Okay, but
yeah, you asked about the future of how it might look like. Yeah, sorry. So I think the most important part is that is interoperability. That's what we're looking for. So how do different systems work together to interoperate? Because the highest value that services we can add, or the ultimate goal, is to increase customer satisfaction. So how it's more convenient and easy, and how it's getting easier for me to get from A to B. So what we hopefully see in the future of transportation is that it makes, for example, the prediction of how long it takes me from A to B more accurate. So that's one example.
Okay, but why is it now happening right? Why is it tech taking over the public transportation right now? Why so late?
I mean, I moved to London about 3 months ago, so I don't know why it took them so long to see the problem or to discover the problem. But in our point of view, we have around 100. So in Canary Wharf, where we built this future city, we have around 105,000 commuters daily. So imagine you have Wembley Stadium get filled up in the morning within an hour every day, and in the evening everybody is leaving again. So the need of new ways of transportation is rising, and I think it's the latest point to think about what to do and what solution we can offer, travelers every day and commuters.
I think I'm surprised it happened so recently, I think, but there's 3 things to me. The perfect formula for why it's happened recently is one, smartphone adoption rates, where I think ordering a car, whether it's a taxi or a friend or a limo, is conducive to a larger screen and a more advanced operating system. The second being mobile broadband access, and the third being location-enabled devices, which I think probably started to take wind towards the end of the 2000s. So, with the introduction of iOS in 2007. So, to me, it was a perfect storm of those 3 enabling technologies, being released. And that's why it's all happening now, to me.
Yeah, I also think it's all about, with each startup you have to have the right timing and can't be too early or too late. And I think it's all about access to communication infrastructure. I think it's having devices cheap enough to be feasible, to be used by each driver, and having enough critical mass in terms of users to actually launch this product. Of course, it will spread out on different other verticals, but you have to start out with a critical mass. And if you look at the smartphone adoption, you can actually see the dot where it all began.
Mihai, you said that Uber has a very small niche market in Romania. Only top earning people can afford to use the service.
What I think is that, what I've learned actually, is that the transportation industry worldwide is a really fragmented market. It's really different from country to country. Each one has different problems. When I'm talking about commuter transportation, at least, they have different problems, be it availability, safety, price, etc. They started off in San Francisco, which basically had a really shitty transportation service. It was also expensive, not reliable. It wasn't very good quality. So it was a good place to solve a lot of problems. For example, the Romanian market doesn't have the problem of availability that much. I think there are too many taxis in terms of the actual requirements of the population. Probably the public transportation could be improved, so that would also decrease the demand. I think they probably should look at each market and see what the best approach to each one is. And I don't think Romania is a good approach to giving a cheaper service. That's for sure. And I think that's also it's also important for us. We're also looking at each market and trying to understand what is the biggest problem there that we can start off with, and then grow from that.
Rob, what's your take when you go to a market and you, first of all, do you find similar services on a market that you target? And if you do, what is your take on the local players?
Yeah, I mean, in every city we expand to, we see local competition and also global competition. So it's no surprise we're not a stranger to competition ourselves. And I think, to your point about, what's appropriate in Romania or in any specific market, Uber is a global company, and our technology and our brand is quite consistent across markets, but our approach is quite local. So in every city, we tailor our product based on, the driving community, prices, and relevant market conditions to establish something that makes sense for the local community. So in Prague, we introduced our Uber Black service, which is priced very competitively against taxi, and you're getting into a Mercedes-Benz E-Class with a driver wearing a suit and a tie, as opposed to getting into a yellow taxi. So that's an example where we tailored a product for that specific market, and we do that in every market we go to. And if Uber comes to Bucharest, we will certainly do the same thing.
Mihai, why didn't you adopt a similar strategy as Uber, with aggressive growth? Because when you came to the market, it was quite an open market. Why are you building on stack of services instead of aggressive growth? What's your strategy?
Well, I think having a stack of services is really important to the stickiness in a particular market. It's much more difficult for somebody to come and take our market share if we are spread out to different verticals. So I think that's an important thing to actually have a stack of services. Now about aggressive growth, that usually costs money if you want to do it in a very simple, straightforward way. It costs a lot of money. I don't know what
you can crowdfund.
I don't know what exactly the burn rate of Uber is, but I know you just got a round of investment of over $1 billion 6 months ago or something like that. Now they're looking for a new round. So that's not something I think any local player can compete with. What we can compete with is giving a good set of services that make sense on that market, and a good mix between them.
Okay. Rob, what's next on Uber? You had a partner with Spotify on some of your cars. And what's next? How do you expand your stack of services, let's say that?
So not geographical expansion, but product expansion, yeah. I think it's something, right now we really are focused primarily on geographical expansion of our core service, so ground, providing people with access to ground transport, and have done that, quite aggressively over the last year with the launch of, about 140 cities. And so for us, laying the infrastructure and developing, local credibility is important to us in our core service, which is, ground transportation. But that can be extended into all sorts of interesting things. So, obviously in San Francisco and in many markets, we're demoing services. Uber Fresh is a service that's being demoed, which is food delivery on demand. Uber Pool is a peer-to-peer extension beta, I guess, of UberX in California, which not only allows you to take a ride, a ride-sharing ride at 40, 30 to 50% less than the cost of a taxi, but actually allows you to pick someone else up you don't know along the way and match you with someone that's going on the same route. This service was just introduced last week in Paris. So we're always thinking about new ways to use our technology, and once the technology has been distributed, is in a marketplace and is in the hands of great drivers, the possibilities are endless. In New York, we introduced a courier service, Uber Rush on demand. So these are not core parts of our business today, but are exciting opportunities for growth in the future as we extend our network across the globe.
I think what we're going to see in the future, everything that has a need to be transported from A to B is ready for disruption. If it's a good or if it's people, whatever it is, and that's what we're looking for when we're looking for startups for this challenge for transportation. But there's also another approach what you can take in terms of looking for the future of transportation in terms of a city, which is thinking of why don't we change the behavior of people to actually think to that, so that they have to commute or to travel. So when we talk about commuters, 100,000 or millions of people, or Paul mentioned yesterday in Tokyo, 4 million people in the tube station every day, which commute from A to B. Is it necessary in the future city to commute actually? Can't we work from home? Can't we create the infrastructure in the future city that people can work from home, that reduces the necessity of traveling and commuting? I mean, of course, this goes against both of your business models, but that's an approach we also take, of course.
Guys, in January in UK, they will test the first driverless public transportation cars. Do you see such services? Do you see that they work better with such apps like yours, like Clever Taxi or Uber? Do you think we'll see a lot of driverless cars on the streets in the near future?
I think it's a nice future. I'd like to be in that future, but I think it's going to be a while in Europe. But what's important for us is that we act as a platform or as a marketplace. So wherever the users are going to be, we're going to be there. Whatever the resource is going to be, the drivers or the driverless cars are going to be, we are going to be there.
What's your take, Rob?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a bright future that's probably not here yet today. Obviously, people talk about Uber in the context of driverless cars, and people have talked about Google and California demoing, obviously being a pioneer in the field. So it's something that I think is exciting to think about, but as you said, is probably a little bit longer out than most people think.
What do you think, Steph?
The funny thing is, for Cognicity in specific, is the whole land where this future city is going to be built and where the legacy buildings are is privately owned. So driverless cars, we could implement them tomorrow. We don't need to ask anybody for that. The question is how to use them and what's the value add for the customer. So when we talk about transportation from a train station to to a specific point where like an office, then I think it makes sense to have driverless cars because it's the same route every day. It's like commuting. But for everything that requires, a service like Uber offers, with a black tie or with a great car, I think that's with driverless cars. I don't know if that's a long way for the future.
Yeah, and I would add that before we get to driverless cars, there's an enormous opportunity today to better utilize cars that are already on the road. And we forget that over the last several decades, vehicle occupancy rates have been steadily declining, basically everywhere, and in particular in Europe. And we have cars sitting in our driveways that are not being utilized. And we don't think twice when we take a taxi instead of using a neighbor's car. And I think there's a huge opportunity today to better leverage those vehicles that are already owned, that are sitting there, that you utilize, 1 hour per day. And that's a bigger near-term opportunity to me than a world where everyone is using a driverless car yet.
I also think we as a whole have to evolve a bit as a society. It's about trust amongst people. It's about having the right laws in place. So it's not going to be an easy shift.
That's a good point, behavior change. That's one thing to add regarding the challenges. We have a playground there, so that's what we are creating. So the goal of our program is not to run the companies through an acceleration program to fund them. Of course, it needs to be commercialized, which is the major goal, but we're looking at the step in between, which means piloting. So all opportunities or all startups and technologies that run through our program get the opportunity to get piloted and implemented with the technology in the existing assets in that area. And that's the real benefit. And that's, I think, a necessary step to connect the link with behavior, where we can create behavioral change in terms of payments, how we buy our tickets, for example, if we use maybe driverless cars or whatever it might be in the future.
Guys, do you see solutions like Clever Taxi or Uber integrated in some kind of public transportation system?
I hope so.
I think it already is. It's already a part of it. Whether people view it that way or see it that way, it is. I mean, people use taxis or limos or Uber or whatever it is as an extension of public transit today, and I think it's time that people think about it that way and start thinking about how we can further accommodate services like this that operate as an extension of public transit.
Yes, now it's an extension, but do you see it integrated into? or maybe taking over?
Personally, I don't see it taking it over, but I think there are opportunities for integration. Certainly, across technology platforms, there are opportunities for that, for sure.
Mihai?
As an aggregator and as a marketplace, we basically work with service providers, which in our case are currently taxi companies, taxi drivers, or private hire, for example. Public transportation can be one of those service providers, provided that it would be integrated in the same manner as the rest of them are. So you would need predictability. You would need a lot of ingredients, which I don't think are there right now.
Okay. Now we open the Q&A session, because I'm sure there are lots of questions, or I hope. Yeah, there's a question over there.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I have a question for you, Rob. Are you prepared from the PR's perspective to give a little insight of what happened in the US with the CEO of Uber? Because I think that startups can learn a lot from the PR disaster, the relationship with journalists, privacy, data privacy, and so on.
I mean, I would say for the most part, Uber has a great, relationship with journalists and media in most markets that we operate in, and like any startup, Uber goes through its growing pains. So I think, to your point, it is a lesson. We are so focused at Uber truly on building a great product and getting it into the hands of people that sometimes we don't show our best face to people when we talk about the service. And I think we learned that lesson, and we also have a lot of great stories that come out in the media about how Uber's helping enrich people's lives, helping disabled people get around a city, helping drivers earn more income, reducing vehicle ownership in markets. So it all comes together. This comes with being a startup and growing rapidly, and I think we learn about that the same way that we learn from our operations.
Over here.
Hey, it's pretty disturbing what happened with Sarah Lacy. It was a pretty high-profile dinner, and I'm curious what the company does for that executive and what's his fate into the company.
Sorry, I didn't. What was the last part?
I'm curious about what the company does with that particular executive and what's his face in the company, because I see it as a big cultural problem in terms of not handling growth.
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on it specifically, but I will say that people make mistakes, and he made an apology. And to be honest, as a company, this is not an operational reality for how we operate at all. And I think anyone that knows Uber and most journalists who've worked with Uber and have covered the company know that to be true. So all I can say is that people make mistakes, and apologies are made, and we pick ourselves up and move on.
And
one more here. Do you guys see a future where taking a cab or an Uber might be less expensive than owning a car?
Yeah,
it is already. Yeah, I can make you the calculations. It is already.
I've did it this morning.
I mean, in Bucharest,
it's almost there
is.
here in Romania.
Yeah.
I personally think so. Yeah. I think the prices right now in Bucharest, for example, aren't actually realistical in terms of the revenues that drivers are getting. However, with what we are doing, we are optimizing the way they work. For a driver in Bucharest, the difference between having profit or not is how many rides you make. They make a lot of time they don't have rides during the day. So I think having these technologies, making things work much better, would bring the prices down to a point that people wouldn't need a personal car, and that would be a great thing for the whole metropolis experience for a person living in a city.
I think price decrease is not the only one. It's just one value add or one benefit of it. I think another benefit is when you're commuting, 40 minutes to work by car, and you're hopefully not using your phone or you can't work or something. When you're using an Uber, you have time that you can use. You can, where you can work, you can make calls, you can, I don't know, watch a movie or whatever it is, or learn a new language. So I think there are a lot of values to those services that we have now and we're going to have in future that increase the way how we get from one point to another.
Any other questions, guys?
Hi. I'd like to ask you a question that it's a little bit off topic, but I'm interested in the city that you're going to build there.
If you keep it short, yeah.
And well, the reason I'm asking is because I am very interested in the smart cities initiative that's happening all over the world. And you didn't say much about what that city will look like and what technologies and approaches will you take there. So if you could say a little about that.
Please.
Yeah, sure. So Cognicity is in the area of Canary Wharf, which is around East London, so central London. It's around 30 acres of docklands, which are going to be rebuilt from the ground up with more than 30 buildings. And next to Canary Wharf, which is already known worldwide as one of the smartest types of cities in the world in terms of how they use energy, how they manage their waste and all this kind of stuff. What we're looking for is kind of new infrastructure technology from the startup side that increase benefits of the tenants and of the people, but on the other hand also in terms of the development of these buildings and how these buildings are going to be managed.
And about waste management, what kind of approaches do you have there, and do you have any startups that are interested in working in that field there at the moment?
So we are looking for startups that are interested in working in it, and we know a lot of startups we are already in touch with. They're working on various solutions on it. So everybody who has an idea and a technology that makes waste management more efficient or quicker, or also the usage of water, come to us, apply to us, and talk to us. We are open. We can offer the resources to work with all of them to develop it further, to implement it and test it. And of course, I have to say it's a cash prize, what every startup gets within each of these accelerator programs of £50,000 and the pilot opportunity, which is the way to commercialize and having a reference project. So, yeah.
Thank you. You said one question or two. So
I'm here around, so just grab me.
Unfortunately, time's up. And we thank you so much, guys, for being here.
Thank you, buddy.
And also thank you from the audience.